Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining today's event on how women succeed in business and science. This panel discussion is the opening event of our Women in Oncology program. And my name is Sharwata Suka. I'm the Global Project Manager of cLAB Ventures and the host of today's event. And just a few housekeeping rules. Today's event is being recorded and we will share it on our social media platforms later on. So feel free to reshare the event or revisit the content if you liked it. And I am joined by three amazing professionals today. We have Eva Tarasova, who is the investment director of Barton Asset Management. And we have Viveka Kalidasan, who is a postdoctoral fellow of the National University of Singapore, and she's also an entrepreneur. And we have Zita Gal, who is a PhD fellow of the Danish Cancer Society. And so welcome. First, I would like to just talk a little bit about why we started the Women in Oncology program. So basically, we would think that gender has no role when it comes to early stage investment. So I guess we assume that investors make their decisions based on numbers and business plans. But according to the data, it's not true. In the UK, actually, after £1 of VC investment, female founded companies only receive 1 penny. So it's 1%. Actually, that's really low.
Tragic.
Yes, and when I was researching this topic, I came across a really interesting piece of information. As on the other hand, according to BCG, so female founded companies ultimately generate a much higher revenue. It's actually 2 times higher than male founded companies. So actually, it makes female founded companies a better investment. So it's really, really interesting. And so we decided to create this program to support not only female founders, but also female professionals in general, female scientists, everyone who is interested in science, in technology, and in business, and to draw attention to these issues, but also to the positives and the success stories as well. So first, I would like to ask our guests to introduce themselves. First, Eva, I would like to ask you to speak a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Absolutely. So hi guys, I'm Eva. I work for Wharton Asset Management, which is a single family office based in London. We've been around for about 30 years now, out of which the last 16, 17 years, we've been solely investing in venture style companies from as early as founder and idea stage up to about Series B for the first time in, then following into the CDE consecutive rounds, as well as proper pre-IPOs, as well as private equity. So within our investment, we have a really big affinity and passion for biotech and life sciences, especially in the areas of gene, cell, and tissue therapies. And oncology actually forms part of the indications which we're really excited about and where we have already made investments. We also invest in medical devices, which are predominantly for the treatment or in the combination of therapy of the devices, which can be diagnostics and therapeutics at the same time. I've spent the last 6 years at Wharton, where I lead the deal flow. So normally I would be the first person to actually have a conversation with the founders and find out if there is sort of mutual connection and would like to take our relationship further. And then I come in once we've invested, literally working on the sort of general strategy, branding, marketing, and communications as well. Because what we tend to forget when it comes to science is that there's so much wonderful, really novel, disruptive technologies coming out from the academia, but how to really communicate this to all the stakeholders and make people understand complicated things in a very simple language. That is something that I think lots of academics and scientists need. And this is where I come in normally in our portfolio companies and help companies build up the story.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. Viveka?
Yeah, hi, hello everyone. Okay, I'm Viveka. I'm based here in Singapore. I'm a research fellow with the National University of Singapore, as Charlotte mentioned. But I'm a very passionate entrepreneur. I don't like myself being identified as an academician. I'd rather be, happy to be called as an entrepreneur. So for the past 4 years, I'm trying to spin off my own postdoc research into a startup. So that's what I've been doing. And the technology itself is a medical device technology. So it comprises of an implantable chip that goes inside the body and a mobile phone kind of a reader. So the idea is that the chip, which is implanted at the site of surgery, should be able to alert the patients and clinicians whenever there is a complication. So as Eva mentioned, for the past 2 years, actually, since I'm very much more immersively involved in the translational space, I am, I would say, tuning myself to break this academic language into a language that the common people can understand. So that's what I've been doing for the past 2 years now, but 4 years of my research here already. So yeah, so that is me. Yeah, otherwise I'm from India, basically. That is it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That sounds great. And yeah, actually, this can be a huge issue if, or this is really important to like bridge the gap between the academia and business, and academia and the people, basically, to understand why innovation is important for all of us.
That's right.
Yes, thank you. Zita?
Yeah, thanks, Sarsi. Hi, everybody. I'm Zita. As Sarsi said, I just obtained my PhD in health and medical sciences, and now I'm a postdoc at the Danish Cancer Society. I'm working with cancer research, and at the Danish Cancer Society, which is an NGO, we have a mission to improve the life of cancer patients. And I am working with basic research, studying genomic instability of cancer cells to identify early mechanisms that are leading to tumorigenesis. So today here I'm representing the academic branch of women. And as both Eva and Viveka said, it's very important to know how we can take ideas out of academia, because I think this is something that is very much overlooked.
Absolutely. Yes, and also I'm turning back to you and Viveka as well with my next question. How did you discover your interest in cancer research? And also, Viveka, how you discovered your interest in science, or in actually your particular field?
Okay, so I'll go first. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, for my passion about science itself, I think my parents are doctors. So growing up, I was naturally interested in biology. So I was always interested in biology. Actually, I was interested in history and geography as well. But I wanted to be a doctor. So yeah, that's my natural inclination, I would say. And for cancer in particular, is my PhD is on nanomaterials for cancer therapy as well as diagnostics. So that was my PhD topic on. I felt when I decided to work on nanomaterials, I feel that cancer as a space really is, there's so much of lobbying of money put into cancer, not for, there is a reason why it's been done. It is indeed a killer disease. So I wanted to explore that space using nanomaterials. So it's just that it is a need of the hour that pushed me into the field, I would say. Yeah, so that's the thing.
Yes, I have always also been very interested in natural sciences. So when I went to a university, I chose biology, and there I was studying cell biology and molecular biology, which absolutely blew my mind, and also how cancer can actually hijack all these regulatory pathways. And I guess that's when I got really, really interested in cancer research and how we can cure cancer, and which is an absolutely interesting disease.
Yes, I can totally relate to this. Like I'm really interested in biology ever since I was a kid, basically. Like even from kindergarten, I think. I have a degree in bioengineering, so I'm also coming from the scientific side. So that's really great. Thank you, guys. Actually, what I find really crucial or really important that I actually never had is a professional female role model that can be someone who sets you up for success. And this is my question. Like, did you ever had like a role model or a female mentor, not necessarily a role model, when you were younger, when you were a student or early on your career? So maybe we can go with Eva.
I can't necessarily say it was my like role model or mentor, but one of the biggest inspirations always when it came to science was my mother, because she's a biochemist herself. She has a double PhD and a postdoc from like a couple of really cool institutions. And she always kind of pushed me towards the science and saying, like, even if you don't become a scientist, you still need to work with scientists. You need to really understand how much of an impact those things such as chemistry and biology can really have on people's lives. And I think once I came out from academia after doing my PhD, I realized I don't want to be just an academic, you know, bringing some sort of research and teaching and all this kind of still being very academic and not practically used. So I was really fortunate that I got a job with Wharton, where actually my boss and the principal of the family I work for is a true inspiration and mentor to me. He is one of those people who actually exploited my talents for investing and really working with founders earlier on. And every single day, I have practically every single day, actually, sometimes, you know, multiple times per day, I have these honest conversations with him, and I can always ask him like how to do certain things. And he's more of a teacher to me rather than just my director and you know, principal. And I think that it's not necessarily always finding about, you know, a female mentor or a female role model. It's more about finding somebody who truly understands and gets where you want to get. And those people who are not afraid to share their knowledge and not be cocky about it, not be arrogant about it, but do it in a more kind of consistent and precise manner and really encourage you and inspire. And based on that, you know, I was thinking, because, you know, like investment jobs sometimes can get really lonely, because you kind of just end up looking at decks, you having pitches, and it just goes on and on and on, and it's every single days more pitches, more pitches. And then I thought, like, what is really the purpose of my life as an investor, right? And what the biggest discovery of the last 6 years that I've spent in Wharton was that my biggest passion is actually inspiring entrepreneurs. So as an investor, I think it's absolutely crucial to become that role model, that mentor to the startups that we're working with. Even if we don't end up investing in those, I think what really matters is to go and inspire and really hope that those people will go and change the world.
That sounds amazing. Actually, Eva is a mentor at cLAB as well. So she is really on this mission to help early stage companies and people with great ideas to succeed. Yes, thank you so much, Viveka.
Yeah, firstly, I should say, Eva, oh my God, that was mind blowing, because I'll resonate with almost everything that she said. And the last part of it, maybe I should talk about it later, about how a PhD person went into investing. I'm very curious to know more about it later. But anyways, about my mentor, my mother, she is my inspiration, my role model. She is like, how to say, even in her medical field, she looks at it like a creative craft, very creative, very hardworking, very determined. So she's my role model and inspiration. But for mentor, unfortunately, my mom, the golden words for my mom could be my mentoring, mentorship things at times, but I never had a professional female mentor. I realized that very recently when I see that everyone around me is a man who's trying to give me advice. Their intentions are good. They do have very good intentions towards me and my startup. But then I realized that it's not just the STEM field, but, you know, mentor is like someone who's a little bit older than you or of your age, but more experienced. Unfortunately, you don't see a lot of women occupying the space yet. And for me, I am here to break that myth as well. So I don't know if Charlotte knows, but I have my own mentoring portal called Avant-Garde Initiatives, where I'm trying to bring up underprivileged girls and women and trying to mentor them into STEM, get them interested in STEM areas. So I am trying to be one of those female mentors, but otherwise, yeah, the space is really very lean. not crowded. I wish there were more women mentors. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like an issue. Someone who can really just guide you, who is willing to get to know you, and not only just give advice, but really advice that is the best for you. Someone who is really making the effort to really get to know you and get to know where you're coming from and where you're going and what's your ideas and what's your goals.
That's true.
Yeah.
Also, I feel that men are, they give us a certain direction, but then definitely the road towards success is difficult for women. That road no man has experienced. So it's good to, get mentored by a woman who has been there and seen that, and also done that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sita.
Well, in my case, I have always been surrounded by women during my career. Both of my bachelor and my PhD supervisors are young mothers who are leading their own independent research groups, which has always been a really great inspiration for me, and they were also my mentors. And above that, I had a really nice opportunity at the university of doing my master's in Denmark, that I was enrolled in a mentorship program in which I was matched with a young female entrepreneur, and she was helping me a lot, giving me advices how to move further in my career, for which I'm really, really grateful. And I think this is, as both of you have already said, we need more female mentors who can see this path and who live this path to help younger women to achieve their goals.
Maybe we can be those mentors in the future. Absolutely, that would be great, actually. And actually, speaking of becoming mentors, what kind of advice would you give to, let's say, someone who is in their early 20s? We are not that older either, but still someone who is younger, who's just maybe just starting their career, or maybe they're picking the field what they're interested in, or even your younger self. What would be like the best piece of advice?
I'm happy to start on this. I think like if I would go back 10 years, I mean, I wish I was 20, right? But if I could go back in time, I would really tell myself to not be afraid and really go for things which you think are interesting and important to you, and never listen to others, because no matter how experienced other people are, they're not you. They can't really be in your shoes. They don't really understand what your true desires are. And I think if I could really go back then, I would not be probably wasting my time with academia. To be completely and brutally honest about it, I probably would have stepped into the investment job much before that, because I think that finding your true self is one of the most important things. And the earlier you start on it, the normally is the better opportunity you've got for it. So I just like want to say that go for it. If you feel like doing something, if you feel that, for example, you have that passion for sciences or, engineering or whatever that might be, just try it. It doesn't matter what others say. It doesn't matter that maybe it was initially perceived as a male dominated industry, because in the end of the day, it doesn't matter a man or a woman. We're all humans. And being a human is about exploring and pursuing your passion and being excited, because by being excited, you actually can help others and really change their lives. So yeah, just don't be afraid.
Yeah, that's great. I totally agree. And also with exploration, what I would say, at least here in Hungary, the system is designed in a way that you have to decide really early on what you want to do with your life when you are just so young. And so that would be my advice to you, to don't be afraid of exploring different fields and jump into different things, and maybe not to follow something like a really, really conventional path. So yeah.
Maybe I can continue and just
Absolutely.
say that I can completely agree with Eva. I think it's the most important is just to be ambitious and to believe that there is nothing you can't do. So if you would like something, you would like to achieve something, you have some goals, just go for it. There is no better advice than that. I think everything is possible.
Yeah, for me, I would not go back and advise my 20-year-old self, because I think pretty much I've been independent enough to do whatever I wanted to do. But for everyone, I would say what Charlotte just said. I think we have to explore. We can't, it's too early to decide what we want in our life. So I think we can do too many things, and we don't have to do just one thing alone too. So that's also something that I truly believe in. So just explore. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, you can have an experience what a job or what a field requires when you are in it already. So you have to really just jump in and start it and try it. And then if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. You can really move on. And speaking of advices, so these were really good. I think it was really good advice. But what was the worst piece of advice that you were given as a young professional?
I can go. I mean, people are advisors are free, right? Because I'm always a person who always at any given point of my life, I do too many things at one time. So people always tell me to focus my energy into one thing. It simply doesn't work that way with me. I would go into depression if I have just one thing to focus on. So I think that's it's not. I don't know whether it's an advice. Everyone around me tells like, so much of hard work you put into too many buckets. Why don't you channel them into one? But I think I'm happy doing whatever I'm doing. And as Eva mentioned, I'm also a person who listens to everyone, but then I might not actually end up doing what they say. I just listen, out of, I listen to people in general, but I don't end up doing it. So yeah, I don't have a problem with bad advices.
Yeah. And have you heard like any bad recommendation that is specific to your field, like, or when you became a scientist, or something that is told to young scientists, or even young female scientists, for example?
Yeah, not a, yeah, of course. But more than a scientist now, as an entrepreneur, I see that people are, even when I'm in this field, they ask me not to take the risk. For me, what's the point of it? I'm an entrepreneur. I want to take risk. I want to take my own decision. I want to fail. I want to learn. But people are so cautious, even in the entrepreneurial space. And that is so weird to me. That's so restricting and arresting. Sometimes I feel so suffocating. But yeah, again, I would not end up listening to them eventually anyway. So yeah. Yeah.
I think it's also not necessarily about bad or worst piece of advice. I think like whenever you're starting out in anything new, you need to really carefully consider all the options out there available. And sometimes it's really kind of perceiving the situation from the outside of the box. So for example, like I grew up in a family where, with a very dominant mother who is a really successful scientist and an inventor of many wonderful things. And it was always like a big pressure that if I don't be as good as her, like what I'm really worthy of. And unfortunately, for some reason, she never really managed to explain to me that chemistry or biology are not just only there to become, to be an academic and do more research in it, or, maybe become a doctor if you're medically trained. She never even explained to me that maybe by studying chemistry or biology, you can go into investment world and actually, inspire and back those people who really know what they're doing and feel passionate about the area. So I think it's sometimes, especially when you're young, is to understand that a certain subject matter has so many various applications that maybe you would actually have more interest in it and have a completely different career path than to what you envisaged before. So it's kind of like, as a young person, I think you should really do your research on that and really understand like what is the real world application apart from the obvious ones that a certain degree or a certain job gives.
Yeah, absolutely. And also like talk to people, a lot of different people, and take notes, and then you can draw your own conclusions, because everyone has their own experience and their own reality. But you can just gather all the information that you need and figure something out for yourself.
Yes, exactly. I was also lucky not to receive any particular bad advice, but when it comes to big decisions, how to move forward with something, I like to reach out to many different people, hear their different opinions, and then try to filter what applies to me and how I would prefer to do it. And I think that's very useful.
Yeah, actually it is. Thank you so much. And so my next question is, because everyone probably everyone can talk about their big successes during their career, but I'm interested in big failures. Like, did you have something like a big failure that actually later on set you up for success or something? Do you have like a favorite failure of yours?
Yeah, I have failure and I like to flaunt my failure. Yeah, show the people. Yeah, because I think it's very empowering to fail and also to raise. So my very famous or favorite failure would be like when I first came here to do PhD in Singapore, like almost a decade ago. I'm a very studious student back home in India, or so I thought when I came here, but things were very difficult here in Singapore. So I came here on a scholarship, but I lost my scholarship. On top of it, I had to pay tuition fee as well. So people did ask me, like my professors did ask me, they told it's difficult for you to, score very good marks because the modules are all very mathematics based. I never had a maths background. So, but they asked me to kind of advise me to leave. So very bad piece of advice. But for me, I wanted to give it a shot. I wanted to try it again to bring back my CGPA, the normal things, right? I brought back my stipend, my tuition fee, everything, and then so I'm here. So it would have been very easy when people around you who think they have seen students like me here fail and who did not come up. So it was easy for them to advise me to leave and go look for any other life science based PhD without mathematics in it, right? But again, as I said, I'm very polite to people. I don't confront them, but I stick on to my own rational thinking. I wanted to give it a shot, so I gave it a shot, and then here I am, right? So whatever I'm doing today is because I overcame that failure, and I like to tell this to people. Here I'm just telling it in a nutshell. If it was an audience of students, I would tell it in a way that they would relate to and they can understand, but this is in a nutshell.
Yeah, that sounds great, actually.
I think like in the finance industry where I work, especially with all the VCs around, people actually hardly ever talk about failures in investing because everybody just puts out there, oh, I've invested in this big startup, it IPO'd at $1 billion, or that company was bought by Facebook, and everybody is super proud of it. And when you actually ask them like, but before you got to that big success, how many companies have failed in your portfolios? What's the real things? And people hardly ever talk about it, right? It's just kind of, it's a stigma attached to the industry almost. And it doesn't matter whether it's female, male, it's just a VC industry per se has this problem of admitting failure. And I think that one of the biggest failures that I've got throughout the 11 years I've spent in investment world is that once investing in a deal which was super hot, there were lots of bigger names writing much bigger tickets in it. Had a huge publicity, and some of the biggest investment names were attached to it, and it didn't work. It went from like 3 billion valuation to zero literally overnight, right?
Oh.
And I think the mistake that I made there, and that's why there was a failure, was I did ask questions, but I probably didn't ask enough questions because I highly relied on the fact that there were bigger VCs involved. There were much bigger names who've been in the industry for much longer than me, having much bigger successes than me. And I thought those people must really know, because it's not one of them, it's not three of them, it's actually a good dozen of them. So why would I even question those things, right? And the company didn't work. So I think the failure is like literally not asking enough questions at the right time, because I think sometimes, especially when we talk about biotech, life sciences, this whole very complicated scientific space, is that people who are non-scientists like me, we are afraid to ask some stupid questions because we think that the scientists know everything. And turns out that sometimes even scientists don't know everything. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things that no question is actually a stupid one. So I think that was really one of my biggest failures personally.
Yeah, absolutely. There are no stupid questions, especially when it comes to really like scientifically complicated solutions. And it can be a really big issue from both sides, from the investor's perspective. For them, it's really hard to understand the hardcore scientific part, like how good is that actually, and how it will work out in the future. And from the scientist side, it's really hard to put it in words that are just easy to understand for everyone, and how they can really explain their solution. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's of course we are all having failures, and especially when it comes to lab work, for example, it's really easy to fail. I think the most important is that we learn from these failures. And as Eva said, it's not only in investment, but actually also in science. You are not talking about your failures. You never publish negative data. You only publish what succeeded. And so many other people, other groups might run into the same problem because you don't share your failures. But on a more personal note, I don't kind of have a favorite failure, but what I can say is that what I learned in the last couple of years during my PhD is that sometimes you have to be able to stop, take a distance, and learn or look at things from a little bit further apart, because sometimes when you are working in the lab, then it's really easy to get lost in the details of day-to-day obstacles and kind of forget the big picture. But I think it's very important to remind yourself what are you working towards to, and by that maybe it's easier to filter out some failures that might come up during the way.
Yeah, you're right. That it's deeply embedded in our society to only like showcase your amazing successes and present a really positive picture all the time, even though it's in many cases it's not beneficial. And maybe you can, when you realize like a lot of people, they have the same struggles, and it can be really, really empowering to just help each other and connect, and maybe find a solution together. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the fundraising and the whole founder investor relationship came up. So actually my next question is related to this. It's this question is for Viveka and also Eva, from as entrepreneurial side and the investor side. So can you talk about a fundraising experience as a female professional, and what are the negative and the positive aspects of it?
I think like one of the biggest problems with startup fundraising genuinely from both investor and entrepreneur perspective, and I'm obviously keen to hear the entrepreneur side firsthand as well here, is that trying to find an investor who truly understands your problem is super hard. The amount of times, I've spoken to even my investor friends who are all in biotech and life science and have scientific background, and you try to explain them like the proposals your portfolio companies have and the problems that they're working on, and they listen to them and I say like, what's so special about it? I don't get it. And it's like, a year later when something really takes off and becomes big, they're like, oh, that's what it meant. So I think it's really kind of finding somebody who truly doesn't just listen, but actually hears what you're working on is a really big hurdle. And another hurdle is like that there is VC industry is literally known for the herd morality. Basically what happens is like one is interested, all of a sudden every other one is also interested. It doesn't matter that the first one maybe hasn't really understood the actual proposition, but for some reason they've got interested, so now everybody wants to actually join together and invest in the same deal. And I think that's a really big issue for entrepreneurs, because to actually really cut through the noise and get the message across makes it almost mission impossible. I mean, from positive side of things, it's not everything is not so negative in biotech and life sciences. There are some positive aspects. I think in biotech, there is a bigger chance to actually establish a deeper relationship with the investor, because the true and innovative science is actually so rare to come by that once you meet the right investor, the relationship goes much deeper and further than just being an investor investee relationship. It really kind of we're becoming family, friends, partners in crime, academics to work together, whatever that might be. And I think this is really unique and specific to biotech. You don't really see it that much in tech, because even in deep tech, that doesn't really come that much, because the amount of the tech coming out is much bigger than actual, for example, novel treatments or novel diagnostics. So like anything else, there are pros and cons in the sector, but I think the key is to really find the people who can relate to you.
Okay, that was really very interesting to hear an investor's perspective. For me, I should say I am fortunate enough that I have not yet faced any problems in fundraising, because as I mentioned, for the past 2 years, I'm trying to translate. So I'm looking at here in Singapore, you can get access to a lot of public funding, which is translation focused, which is undiluted. You don't have to dilute your shares. So I've been fortunate enough to tap on those kind of funds, and it was always easy for me. I don't know why, maybe I pitch very well and people really do connect with the problem that I'm trying to solve. So I think the value proposition, the way you present it, it's technical, it's wireless bioelectronics, but what I put in front of the investor or the granted body is not the technical aspects, it's the value proposition. I try to sell the value proposition. So for me, there's no much difficulty, I would say, because Singaporean ecosystem is very much nurturing for entrepreneurs. So in that way, it's very good. And the investors whom I've spoken to have also always come back to me resonating with the problem that I'm trying to solve. But I'm not taking any investor money yet, because I want to develop the technology a little bit more. So I'm trying to use the public funding, translation funding. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And Eva, what advice would you give for early stage companies in biotech or medtech? How they can, what is a good starting point, or how they can really get rid of the noise and find the right people?
Well, I think one of the key things is that people constantly talk about this warm introductions and get somebody else to introduce you to the relevant investor. I'm a big believer that if you really have a good product, you don't need any of this. You can call them as a relevant person and you get the response. But I think what needs to be done to actually maximize the chance of this happening is your investment deck literally has to clearly outline why is it you and not somebody else. So your science needs to be communicated in a very simple 2 sentences, and then the investor who is reading this deck needs to understand why you exactly is the right person to deliver that science. Apart from that, everything else literally does not matter. And also, if you don't hear back from investors, as people looking for funding, don't be discouraged, because simply as investors, we get overcrowded with decks. And if that deck has not caught our attention for whatever reason, maybe, I think in biotech, for example, what happens quite often is like, for example, I'm more prone to speak to companies which are in the sectors where we've already invested in, or where I have maybe personal interest in. And sometimes, we overlook things which could have made it for investment, but didn't, just because it was not something which was right for us. And I think as an entrepreneur, you also have to realize you don't want an investor who does not, have this sort of spark and flame for your technology, because they won't be able to live with you for the next 10, sometimes 15 years, and you really don't want that. So in fundraising, never take a no personally, because it's about finding a relationship where you can be together for a long time and really benefit from each other on both sides. And I think it's also, don't be pushy with investors, because some of the companies I see, like, who literally email me, like, literally, I don't reply for 2 days. They email me and email me and email me. Like, there is a reason why I haven't come back. I either don't want to dig in on this, or maybe I'm checking something and I'm trying to get an advice before I go and talk to you. So be patient with investors. We're just humans like everybody else.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. And I have another question for you, because female VCs are really rare, I think. But I'm really interested in your opinion. And I've read that actually in 2020, only 13% of VC partners in the UK were female. So it's just a little bit, basically 10%. And what is your experience? How do you feel about this? Or is there anything specific, or is it positive, negative, or neutral?
I mean, to be honest, like, when I started in this area, I was exactly 20 years old. I was young and sometimes dumb and very kind of over enthusiastic about things. And I remember, like, going to these bigger events, and for VCs, for example, you would go into a room and it will be like, I don't know, 1,000 people, 990 would be men, and there's like then a rare woman sometimes walking around, and you'll be like, oh wow, there are women here. And men, obviously, because it just was not common for female investors to be around, would always question what is actually your knowledge to be even with us here, right? So it was tough. But I think in the last sort of maybe 3-4 years, situation has really changed dramatically. And there are now so many female investors out there. And I know that loads of VC funds are actually kind of embraced the issue of diversity and are hiring more and more female partners. As an example, I'm part of an angel syndicate called Alma Angels, where we only invest in female founders. And on this syndicate, we have about 250 angels. Most of them are investors in their everyday life, and they are partners at the VC funds where they work. So that kind of gives me a good indication that there are lots of female investors. But what companies should not be doing, I think, is that not kind of jumping on this bandwagon that I only want a female investor. I feel more comfortable talking to a female investor. Few weeks ago, I was looking at a biotech company on really hardcore science, and there were 2 female founders there and 1 male founder. And in the end, I was like, I wasn't really particularly interested in investing because I thought it was interesting, but maybe too early. I was not really sure about the commercial expertise of the team to really deliver on this. So I said, like, let me sit out and wait for the next round. It's happening in the next 9 to 12 months. I'm not really missing out much. And one of the founders there, she called me up and said, can you please even personally invest in us? We just need a female investor on the cap table for diversity. And I'm like, this is not the way to approach the problem. What you should be doing, you should be looking for the best investor. And the same goes for female entrepreneurs, the best founder, no matter man or woman. So yeah, I think industry is changing and women should be inspired, but I think we shouldn't be just kind of having this positive discrimination at the same time. We should be just looking at best talent in whatever vertical that is and giving, obviously giving a chance to everyone to prove that they're worthy, right? But in the end of the day, sticking just to a real talent rather than, just the metrics. It's a woman, it's a man, or, the whole diversity is just, we are all, in the end of the day, we're all human. And the whole kind of point of it is like to bring the advancement to the world, to actually change it for the better place. So you can't really judge man, woman, who cares really?
No, it's great to hear that you're only judged by your talent and your expertise. That's good. Actually, this is what we want to hear at this point. And actually, the same question in the STEM field for Zita and Viveka. So what is your experience? I know it's a little bit different. So it's around, I don't know, 40-50% of scientists are female. So it's not a big difference. But how do you feel? Like, is it important to ensure that the science and tech industry has female representation? How do you feel about this?
Oh yeah, I really feel for research, as you mentioned, 40-50, I would say even more, at least like from India, I would say in India, what happens is girls who, because academia is such a relaxed space, or so people believe that academia is such a relaxed space, they think that in India, oh, if a girl is not interested in getting married for some reason, then you can just pursue a career in academia so that you will get some money coming in while you're also, looking for a, in India, there's this concept of stupid arranged marriage. So when the parents are finding, so most of the girls in, I'm not trying to make it generic or stereotype it, but in my own experience, I know very, very few girls come to academia because they want to pursue science or even social science for that matter, right? But otherwise they come there because they don't have any other choice. They just don't want to be at home sitting simply. So that's the stereotype that I want to break. I want more women to be really interested in science. I think women need representation, or STEM needs women representation. And I think women are more prone to details, more, I mean, to be honest, it's equality. Men and women, they're all the same, but there are places where women are more patient, they can look into details. So academia does need women to be in it. But for the entrepreneurial space, it is still not crowded at all. Forget about crowded, it's so underrepresented. And as you mentioned in the very beginning, people don't want to invest in women entrepreneurs. Forget about being a brown woman entrepreneur. Oh my God, so many stigmas added to that, right? They simply don't believe that you are capable of doing something because of the color of your skin or your gender. for that matter. So this is something that I'm trying to break myself. So I go in front when people see me, when people say that, you know, I saw a post about you on LinkedIn, it inspires them without even me knowing that I'm inspiring someone. So that's what I want to do. I want to bring more people into actually into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Yeah. I think in my life, that's what I want to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I think research or science in general is quite a male-dominated field, and I think it's very important that women get the same opportunities if they choose to pursue a career in science. And it's important to have diversity because it always leads to a lot of great different ideas and eventually to excellence, which is the basis of science. And in our field, and I can only speak of Denmark, I can see more and more female group leaders or leadership, women in leadership positions, which is really good and shows also young women to, they show that it's a possibility to have this kind of career in science. And what Charlotte has said, that there is about a 50% of women and men in science. But this is true until the PhD. But after that, this is changing a lot. So if you see or if you look at professorships, I think 70% in Europe are male. So this phenomenon is really interesting, and I think this is something that we should raise awareness and see where all these women disappear from science after a while.
Yeah, and also, sorry.
Oh, go on.
And also, I think in many cases, companies or institutes, they forget the commercial value because in a sense that many of the products are designed for the male body, for example. And there are a lot of issues, like female issues and things that should be designed differently for women. And they usually bring up the seatbelt issue, for example. But they're just the most simple product, but we can talk about anything else, to breast cancer and other female-related diseases, everything else. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And before we move on to the next question, there is a question from the audience to Eva. Eva, you mentioned commercial skills of the team. How important is that in a life science startup?
It depends pretty much which stage you're at. If you're like super early between sort of proof of principle to proof of concept stage, I would say it's not as important, because what really matters at that point is to prove that the science works, and then you can go out and actually hire the right commercial team once you're kind of getting towards the clinical studies. But I think like if you're approaching investors once you are already in clinic and like in phase 1, and you're literally just an academic team and you have nobody who actually has been on this journey before and taken the products out of the lab, essentially lab, into the market, it's not a good sign. So I'd say depending on the stage, the commercial team might be really crucial. And then in the early stages, not as much.
Thank you so much. And we are approaching the end of this session, but I still have some questions for you, because I'm really interested in what kind of solutions or trends or innovation you find the most fascinating in your field that maybe could be a game changer in the near future.
I'm happy to start, right? So about 5 years ago at Wharton, we founded our first biotech business, which is a company called Ixaka, which in itself is actually a very interesting name, because we believe that we wanted to invest in something which is absolutely life-changing for patients. So Ixaka essentially it's a Hebrew word which stands for the child of laughter. And we decided that the best way to change the life of patients is by literally creating treatments which are absolutely life-changing in a sense, and by doing so, not in the field of the traditional sort of small molecule, but really going much deeper and working in the field of gene and cell therapies. So back then we started with cell therapy for critical ischemia. And then a few years later, in 2019, we decided that we really want to get into the field of immune oncology. And Ixaca has acquired a business which actually develops an in vivo CAR T therapy. It's basically it's a platform which enables therapeutic cells to be targeted and genetic modifications to be performed directly inside the patient's body. There are literally a handful of companies who are in this space, and I think this is a game changer, because if you really think about it, the in vivo genetic modification of T cells and the driver for expression of the CAR, enabling recognition and elimination of cancer cells within the patient's body, is something that hasn't been done before. We all know about how immunotherapies are super exciting, and we all have heard about the success of Chimera, for example, one of the first immune therapies on the market. But what we all forget about, that those therapies still remain accessible for the privileged ones, because the A, they're very expensive. B, the manufacturing capacity is literally not there, so we can't really roll it out to the millions of patients who actually need them. And I think by kind of really thinking outside of the box and coming up with technology like that, which allows to use patient's body as its own incubator, this not only brings changes to the world of cancer, but also to things like genetic disorders, neurological and ocular diseases. The application that we have created, which essentially is a platform approach using nano-wrapped lentiviral vector, is huge. And I think this is one of those things. I remember like talking about this to a biotech friend of mine a couple of years ago, and she was like, what's so cool about it? CAR T therapies are like thousands of them, like you're not really changing anything. I'm like, yeah, if you think about it like that, but if you actually think that there is a new manufacturing standard that's coming together with it, this is just mind-blowing. And I think that the opportunity to actually create this kind of like on-off switch to really activate and deactivate the therapy within patient's body, that's like probably super disruptive for the space.
That's really cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for me as well, in general, I like disruptive technologies. So that's like in general. But for my own space, not because I come in from the same space, but I believe that wireless or cloud-based monitoring of patient health, that is something which is important too. Like COVID has made it, more and more absolutely essential that there is a need to monitor patient even when the personnel is not near the patient. So any kind of technology which nurtures this, that is some kind of technology that I'm interested in. I work on one such technology, but there are wearable technology, like wearable space is so crowded. So yeah, that's the kind of technology that I'm interested in. Yeah.
Thank you.
I personally find personalized medicine approaches in cancer very good direction, and I'm happy to see that there are actually quite some investments and innovations in this regard. And also there are more and more of these precision oncology approaches for the molecular profiling of individual tumors to identify targetable alterations in these cells. And I think this is the future of cancer therapy.
Absolutely. And now it's just a little bit more personal question, but what are your plans for the future? We can start with Zita now from the other direction.
Well, I'm really into academia, as you can see, so I really like basic research, and since I think it gives the basis of all future therapies, and I really hope that by staying in this field, I can contribute for some future treatment strategies in cancer that maybe will be further developed by somebody like Viveka and Eva.
Okay, for me,
collaboration.
Yeah, I think that should be so interesting. Okay, for me, very recently, like very recently, I figured out that I'm an innovator and I'm trying to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, that's very good, but I want to explore the space more. I want to explore it holistically. So I was actually looking at how VCs work. I mean, I want to sit on the other side of it and look at the space, So that for me, that's my future plan. So maybe Eva, I should talk to you later after this meeting. Yeah, I should get your insights into it. Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Thank you.
Future plans, really good question, right? So I've been at Wharton now for 6 years, and the thing is I'm not going anywhere. I decided, like, I really kind of took a cautious decision. I want to stay at Wharton until the moment when Ixaka's product actually hits the market and we can really see the in vivo CAR T used by patients. So that's probably a good 10 years away from the market, right? Maybe a bit quicker, maybe a bit longer, we don't know, right? But let's estimate that that's how long it normally takes for the drugs to be approved, right? So I'm staying put, and I'm really looking forward to inspiring more entrepreneurs to, go and found new companies and really take products to the market. And for me personally, I really would like to see some of our portfolio companies where the biotech especially is in early stages of development to really come to the market and save the lives of millions of people.
That's great, thank you. And we count on you here at cLAB as well. Yes, thank you so much. Actually, it was really, really interesting and really empowering to talk to you. And for our future plans as cLAB, this was the opening event of the Women in Oncology program. So there will be more events and more opportunities. Actually, we will provide female founders an opportunity to pitch their ideas to investors. We really want to support the growing number of female founders in our portfolio. And also we are planning more public events like this to connect with everyone who's interested. And as I can see, oh yeah, I was just checking the Q&A section. Yes, thank you so much. We just got a message. Thanks, it was really nice. So thank you so much for joining me. And also thank you everyone who joined as the audience. Thank you.